Hey everyone, today we're going to be chatting all about houseplants. When it comes to styling our home, plants are our favorite way to go. They're functional as they improve the quality of air within our home, whilst also helping transform our space into a cozy and calming retreat. Having said that, I can totally relate to that feeling of not having a green thumb whatsoever. I actually used to steer clear of buying houseplants for such a long time, as I didn't have the best track record in keeping them alive. But I now realize that I was probably a little too ambitious when I started off, bringing home plants that were a little more finicky and not as easy to care for. So in today's video, I'd like to share 6 easy care houseplants that I'd recommend from my own personal experience to anyone feeling like they don't have a green thumb, maybe would like to have houseplants but don't have a whole lot of time, or are just getting started. All of the following plants thrive on very little attention from my experience. They're relatively easy to grow and have definitely helped me rekindle my confidence, and perhaps they can help you do the same. Now, before we get started, I want to mention that some plants are toxic, so just make sure you keep that in mind and do your research if you do have any young children or pets that might nibble away at the leaves. Alright, hope you guys enjoy this one and let's jump right in. First up is this glossy green Zanzibar Gem, or commonly called the ZZ plant. When I first brought this plant home, it actually came with a little tag stuck in the soil that said, "Thrives on neglect." And I'd say that's so true. This plant needs very little attention, and the easiest way to kill the ZZ is to actually shower it with a little too much love. It's very prone to root rot, so if you want to keep it alive, just keep the watering to a minimum. I usually wait for the soil to completely dry out between waterings, and I check this by simply sticking a finger in the soil and making sure it doesn't feel damp in any way. How long it takes for the soil to dry out can really vary depending on where you live, but for me it's usually about every 3 weeks in the warmer months and about 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes longer in the cooler seasons. The reason this plant can go so long without being watered is because it's grown from rhizomes. Rhizomes are these potato-looking things that hold a lot of water, so don't be afraid if you accidentally miss a watering here or there. This plant will definitely push through. Even though the ZZ thrives in medium indirect light, it can also tolerate extremely low light settings, so it's perfect for any home or office that just doesn't get much light. Also, being a tropical plant, it loves some humidity, so it'll do really well in areas like bathrooms where there's a lot of steam, or you can simply use a humidifier to crank up the humidity in your space. Next up is the Monstera Deliciosa, also nicknamed the Swiss cheese plant because of the holes it develops in its leaves, much like a slice of Swiss cheese. If you're looking for a confidence booster, then this is it. Out of all the plants I'm showing you guys today, this one's grown the most and the quickest during the time I've had it. It only had one tiny little leaf when I brought this plant baby home, and now it's grown so many of these beautiful, majestic, umbrella-like leaves. The Monstera can grow monstrously big, hence the name, so make sure you give it a lot of room to stretch out and it'll make the perfect statement piece in your home. Unlike the ZZ, it doesn't do as well in low light areas, so make sure you find a nice bright spot for this one. Maybe by a window, but just keep it out of direct sunlight as this can burn the leaves, which as you guys can see here, I learned very early on. When it comes to watering, general rule of thumb again is to check that the soil is fairly dry before watering. The best way to do this is just using your finger for the small to medium pots, or for larger pots I'd recommend using a skewer or a moisture meter to get deeper into the soil. Fun fact, the Monstera is a tropical plant that usually likes to climb up trees in rainforests, so every now and then it'll shoot out these aerial roots that help support the plant and also help it climb. It'll do really well if you give it some kind of stake or support to climb up on. Third on the list is the beautiful Pothos. I currently have 2 varieties, the neon Pothos. This is actually a baby cutting off a bigger one that I got given for Christmas, and the golden Pothos, also known as Devil's Ivy, which has these beautiful flecks of white and gold on its heart-shaped leaves. I'm currently on a mission to grow and propagate lots of these, as I'd love to have a few hanging baskets around my home and in my office. They also look really beautiful placed on wall shelves and bookshelves, as the leaves just hang off the edge. If you want your pothos to really thrive and grow a little more quickly, then medium to bright indirect sunlight is always best, but they can tolerate low light as well. They might just take a little longer to grow. Once again, the pothos doesn't like to be overwatered, so make sure the soil is dry before watering again, and always err on the side of underwatering rather than overwatering with this one. The snake plant is another great one for beginners. This is my first ever houseplant, and it's actually what got me going on this plant journey. Like the ZZ, this is another one that pretty much thrives on neglect and is drought tolerant due to the rhizomes at its base that hold water. I usually water mine once every month or so after checking that the soil's completely dry between waterings. The snake plant is generally a slow grower, so if you want it to do really well, it thrives in bright indirect sunlight, but this plant will also tolerate low light spaces just fine, so it's still a good option for decorating those slightly shadier corners of your home. I have two varieties, the Sansevieria Laurentii, which is this one with a yellow rim around the edges, and also the Sansevieria trifasciata, which is pretty much the same but without the yellow edging. According to the NASA Clean Air Study, the snake plant is a great air purifier, and whilst most plants convert carbon dioxide into oxygen during the day, the snake plant is one of those rare few that produce oxygen during the day and during the night as well, making it a great plant to have in the bedroom whilst you sleep to help improve air quality. Number 5 is the Crassula Perforata, also known as the string of buttons. This is a beautiful, easy to grow succulent that has these stacked triangular leaves. Currently mine's not looking at its best as I did cut it down to propagate, but usually at its prime it looks like this. You can put a whole lot of cuttings into one pot to get it to look nice and full. As with all succulents, you want to use the soak and dry method for watering, meaning you water it and give it a good soak and then let it go completely dry before it's time to water it again. The string of buttons also likes a lot of light, so the more light you can give it, the better. It's also one that can tolerate direct sunlight as well, so you can pop it on a windowsill. I usually keep mine next to this window where it gets plenty of light during the day. When it comes to the soil, I use a cactus or succulent potting mix, which has really good drainage and helps to prevent any root rot. Lucky last on my list is the Ficus Elastica, also known as the rubber plant. This one is another tough indoor plant that's great for beginners. It has these really beautiful glossy leaves that can vary from being dark green to having a more burgundy tone. This plant prefers a well-lit spot out of direct sunlight and, like the others, loves to have its soil dry out between waterings. If you've been on the hunt for a rubber plant for a while, you may have seen different coloured versions of these, and a really good tip that's helped me out is that the more coloured or variegated the leaves are, usually the more light that it requires. So that might help you out if you are deciding to buy one of these. Just have a think beforehand where you might want to put it in your house, and remember that it does need a nice bright spot. And those are 6 easy care houseplants that I'd recommend. These are all ones that I started with, and they've really helped rekindle my love for having plants in my home. If you're a plant parent yourself and have some other easy care houseplant suggestions, leave them below, I'd love to know. Hopefully this video has inspired you to adopt some of your own plants and create a cozy green space within your home. Also, if you enjoyed this video, it always means a lot if you give it a thumbs up, and that also really helps me know what type of content that you guys enjoy seeing from me. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.